Hello, it's Nancy, Life Coaching by Nancy, and I am waiting till 7 o'clock, but I wanted to get some stuff set up here, like the lighting, which is not all that great. So bear with me. That's a little better. We will be starting at 7 o'clock. 1 minute. 1 minute. One minute. Get these pop-ups out of here. One more. It is 7 o'clock. I'm Nancy. Hello. I'm Nancy from Nancy's Life Coaching by Nancy. And this class is Living Longer, Living Better. And what I'm going to talk about in this class is the 4 key components to the happiest people in the world, according to Harvard professor, social scientist Arthur C. Brooks. Have you heard of him? You're not going to want to miss any of this. If you want to Google Arthur C. Brooks, you will find he is a best-selling author. He was president of a think tank in Washington, D.C. Arthur C. Brooks is a social scientist out of Harvard. He is a professor at Harvard, and he's a pretty smart cookie. I have 2 of his books. One is Strength to Strength, and the other one is Love Your Enemies. Those 2 books I have, but I believe he has written 12 books, and they are all New York best-selling author books. He's amazing. I'm also going to be talking about intermittent fasting. There's a lot of conflicting information on intermittent fasting, and I want to debunk some of the myths. This would be a 5-class course if I gave you all the information that I've studied on it. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a glimpse, but let's start out with my credentials. I am a certified life coach in the areas of health and wellness and mindset. I have 27 years in the study of nutrition and exercise physiology. I've worked in gyms such as Gold's Gym, Bally's Pac West, World Gym, and Living Well Lady, where I was an ACE certified aerobics instructor back in the day when I was about 18 years old or so. Long time ago. So I also have a passion for brain health. Most people call it mental health. I worked in behavioral health for about 3.5 years or so, and also worked with children who were on the spectrum and things of that nature as well. So that's a little bit about me. Let's move on to the 4 just kind of like key components to happiness. So you might think, how come some people are happier than others? Well, I covered this a little bit in my last class, which was Mindset Matters. And it turns out that our personality is determined by our DNA, so our parents. So if you have maybe one parent that's really, super I would say happy or optimistic, and then you have maybe a negative parent, you're going to fall somewhere in between. Hopefully you'll lean more towards the parent that was optimistic. I definitely do. I take after my father. God bless him. Very happy that I have some of his best attributes. So that just kind of tells us a little bit about our personality. But What are the four major key components in the happiest people on earth? So, according to Arthur C. Brooks, the social scientist out of Harvard, he has studied happiness. That's what he studies. Now, he has gone to visit the Dalai Lama, I believe 12 times or so, maybe more by now, which leads me to this book, The Art of Happiness. This is an amazing book. I've also read The Happiness Hypothesis, which is also a great one, and they generally showcase that one in colleges quite a bit. So, what is happiness to you? What makes you happy? Turns out that the four things are faith, family, friends, and meaningful work. So, for faith, it's not necessarily religion. Okay, it turns out that you can have faith in pretty much anything. And as long as you're practicing some type of like meditation or something that involves a faith-based sort of, sorry, I thought I turned that phone off, but I did not. So it turns out that faith is not just religion-based. So as long as you have some kind of like faith in anything, that is a key component in happiness. Also, the other thing is family. Now, we don't always get along with our family members. Maybe we're divided. It turns out in the last 3 years that 1 in 5 families, this is according to Arthur C. Brooks and his research, 1 in 5 families is divided because of politics in the last 3 years primarily. And that study has been going on. And I personally know a couple people who are divided in their families because of political stances. And, I really want to encourage people not to be divided by ideology or politics, especially with your family. You may have disagreed with your Aunt Susie, last year at Thanksgiving, but, maybe if you call her at 2 a.m., she might be the one that comes and rescues you or helps you in some manner. So if we can just stop the division, that would be great. The third one is friends. Now, I want you to take your closest friends, take a piece of paper. Yeah, really, try it. Take a piece of paper, write down the names of your friends, okay? There's a study that says do your closest 20. Well, I don't know anyone who has closest 20. So just write down your friends, whatever friends that you have, and put them in category of deal or real. The real friends are the ones that you can call, at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever. You call them and vent. Call them, there's no judgment. Those are the real friends. Those are the ones we really want to keep in our lives. The deal friends are the, conditional friends. They're still friends. It's a good thing that you're still friends with them, but, they probably won't help you out if you're in a bind or a crunch. So that's the third element. The last element is meaningful work. Doing work that's meaningful. I always say, if you would do a job and you would do it for free, you're probably in the right job. So, it has to be something that's meaningful to you. Now, you could be a janitor and that job is meaningful to you. That job means everything to you. You love being a janitor. Whatever it is that you really love, that's meaningful. It's not what society says is meaningful for you. It's not what, your neighbors tell you is good for you to do, or, your job as a janitor is no good or whatever. If it means something to you, it's meaningful work. Now, there's 3 things that you have to have in balance and in abundance in order to have the four aligned. Those three things are enjoyment, pleasure. What do you find enjoyment? What brings you pleasure or joy? Okay, the next thing is satisfaction. How satisfied are you in your life? You know, the people who are not satisfied are the ones who are chasing things constantly, and they're never going to get what they want. You've heard that song by the Rolling Stones. Maybe some younger viewers maybe haven't heard this, but can't get no satisfaction. Kind of true. Kind of true. Mick Jagger said it pretty well. And I suspect that's why he has all the things that he has, is because that was a pretty wise song. You can't hang on to satisfaction. You can get, a new car, and, you might be really excited, and after you've driven it for a while, after you've had it in your driveway for a while, it's on to the next thing. So those are the things that you really want to think about. So faith, family, friends, meaningful work. And to keep all these in perspective, you have to have enjoyment in your life, satisfaction in your life, and you have to have meaning and purpose. Your meaning and purpose is, in essence, service to others. How do you serve people? How do you take your work and your life and serve others? We see all these books that are out, and there's always like a self-help section, but there's not a help others section. There's not a help others. When you're serving others, you're serving yourself. When you work in customer service and you're really good at it, and customer service is a learnable, teachable skill. Customer service is something that can be taught, and some people are just naturally really good at customer service. Others are not so good at it. And I think we see that when we go into stores. I think that we can see who has a good team of people in their corporations and who maybe doesn't. So I can give you an example of really good customer service. I learned how to give really good customer service. I wasn't always good at it. I wasn't. I actually was fired from a job when I was 19. I was 19. And it was because I had a poor attitude. I worked at a bank, and I wasn't really nice to people. They'd ask me where the withdrawal slips were, the deposit slips, and I'd be like, they're right there. Okay, you can go fill it out. I was so rude, and I just didn't have a good customer service. I just didn't have a good attitude. Plain and simple. Didn't have a good attitude. I deserved to be fired from that job. I absolutely deserved it. There was no reforming me on that one. So when that happened, I learned how to become kind of a master at customer service. And I'm happy to report that in the jobs and in the corporations I worked for after that, after I was 19 years old and learned my lesson the hard way, I would have reviews, and my customer service was always like the highest. I made myself a master at customer service. So I'm proof that it's learnable and teachable to anybody. So there's a kind of an example for that. And when I talk about faith, family, friends, and meaningful work, you need to connect with your family. You need to connect with your friends. Even if it's just an email, a text, something to connect with your family. Now, I know that not every family is close. I definitely have, people in my family that I don't even talk to. So I'm not the poster child for kumbaya. So we definitely have dysfunction in my family. Definitely. And then the ones who were really close are now gone. They're in a better place. So, and that's most of my family is gone. So the ones that are left that I don't talk to or they don't want to talk to me, that's their choice. And I have been saying this to people lately that rejection is protection. Some friends and some family we really shouldn't be associated with. It doesn't do us any good to be around them. So rejection is protection. Not every family member agrees. Not every friendship lasts either. And that's just life. And we're okay with that. You have to just be okay and be thankful for the people you have in your life and the good family that you surround yourself with. I have some amazing cousins and just some great people and some wonderful friends as well. I'm very blessed in that area. So that kind of wraps up the happiness. And then, so if you are taking notes on this, I mentioned faith, family, friends, and meaningful work. And then you have to have enjoyment, satisfaction, and purpose and meaning. When those three are balanced, the rest of it falls in line and you lead a happier life. Statistically, the happiest people are over the age of 55. 50, 55, 60, somewhere around there. I can concur with that. I have friends that are younger than me, and I have a friend that is 80 years old, and I love talking to her. I am going to go visit her in October, and she lives in Arizona, so I will be seeing her, and she has a major amount of wisdom that I soak up as much as I can. So that wraps up the happiness. So if you were taking notes, that's what I was just talking about. The 3 things that you need to keep in balance, and then the 4 major components. So let's move on to intermittent fasting. This class, intermittent fasting, I'm actually going to do a whole class just for women because the hormonal balance of women and what day your cycle is on and things like that really has an impact on your fasting. So what is intermittent fasting? So in essence, intermittent fasting is going without food for a period of time. So when we sleep, we are fasting. You've heard breakfast, break, fast. Breakfast. Now, if you had your last meal at 6 o'clock at night and then you quit eating, no snacking, no candies, no anything after dinner, have a shut-off time. Maybe you had dinner at 6, you want to shut down the food by 7. So then you sleep until 7 the next morning. That's 12 hours of not having any food. Then go to like 11 or 12, so don't eat breakfast. You've just done like a 16-hour window of no food. 16, 17, 18, depending on when you decide to have. Now, I worked with a woman who shamed me for not eating breakfast. Lord, she shamed me. And I just told her, what's the big deal? Well, you just know so much about nutrition. You know that's the most important meal of the day, Nancy. Says who? I don't like breakfast. I don't want to eat breakfast. And I can say, okay, well, I eat breakfast every day. I just eat it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or noon. I could argue that. But since I worked with her, I figured, not worth it. what you do in your intermittent fasting and how you want to do a 16, a 12. You can have benefits on 12, 14, 16, 18. Your body's going to go into autophagy. When your body goes into autophagy, that's usually the 24-hour mark, 24 to 48-hour mark. Now, that's a while to fast. Autophagy is literally the cells repairing themselves. It's the degeneration of the cells, and then they get rid of the bad. Your body gets rid of the bad cells in autophagy, and then it repairs the cells. So stem cells are actually being repaired in your body. Fasting is something that is it's been used for years for religious reasons. It's been used for centuries for all kinds of different occasions and reasons. One of the best things that they have figured out, and also when I'm talking about research, you can go to a site called PubMed. Make sure I got it right. Yep, PubMed.gov. And if you go to PubMed.gov, you will see any research paper. You can type in anything you want. Type in intermittent fasting, Jason Fung. You will see research papers. You can see it from any university. You can see any research paper that has been published. And so that is a very useful tool for you to have, is go to PubMed.gov. So, I mean, because, Googling something doesn't always, I don't think Google for information, or especially health-based information, I don't think Google does you justice. So do that, PubMed.gov. And that's if you have any questions or you just want to look up research information. But what intermittent fasting does, and one of my sources for intermittent fasting is Jason Fung. He is a nephrologist out of Canada. He's a medical doctor. He's a genius. He's an absolute pioneer of intermittent fasting. He has nephrology, is kidney specialist. So when patients come to Dr. Fung, and he's out of Canada, when patients come to him, they're kind of on their last leg with the kidneys. They're generally diabetic type 2, and he has proven that intermittent fasting can not only reverse diabetes type 2, but it can get people off of the medications that they have to take for the diabetes. Now, diabetic medication isn't going to cure diabetes type 2. It'll curb it, and it'll keep it somewhat under wraps if the patient is taking it faithfully and adhering to diet and exercise. The exercise portion of it is to lower the glucose and lower the blood sugar in the patient. And I am a complete champion for exercise. Now, exercise will not, and I repeat, will not make you lose weight. Exercise can keep you firmed up, can keep you holding on to your muscle mass. As we get older, we lose muscle mass, we lose bone density. Women and men are different in that area, but pretty much going to lose it. To retain the muscle, which muscle burns fat, so you want to go ahead and do strength training when you're over the age of 40. You want to do that pretty consistently. I always tell people, when I have clients come to me for nutrition or weight loss, I always tell them, you cannot out-train your fork. What you're putting into your body, you cannot go run it off. It's not going to happen. You can't have a cupcake and go run it off. So, but one of the things about intermittent fasting that I do really enjoy is that when you do it long enough, you go into ketosis. And so ketosis is a very good thing. It's like when you use intermittent fasting and the keto diet combined, you have excellent results for weight loss if that is what you're looking for. I know the paleo diet is really popular, the carnivore diet. I think diets don't work. I think a lifestyle change works, something that's sustainable, something that works for you. We all have different biology, so some diets are not going to show the same results in each person. Some people have thyroid issues. Some people have, diabetes type 2. There's a lot of different things and sort of components to weight loss being successful for people. So, like for women, after the age of 40, we can't eat what we did when we were 20. So, things change. Our bodies change. When we have children, our bodies change. There's a lot going on with the females. That's why I want to do a whole class dedicated to women and fasting. I have some really good research on that. But let's get back to intermittent fasting. So while you're sleeping, and if you have that cutoff time, say your last meal was 6, your cutoff for food is 7, you sleep till 7, you've already had 12 hours of fasting. Your body's already repairing itself. And that leads me to something else. Your sleep schedule has a lot to do with your health, your brain health, mental health, and your physical health. Now, it's like Mother Nature kind of gives us a dirty trick, though, as we age. We lose melatonin. So, you would think, I'll just take a melatonin supplement and everything will be fine. Not so much. Melatonin supplements are only going to get you to sleep for a tiny little bit of time, and then you're going to wake up and be wide awake. So they don't really work. A lot of people use chemicals also, like smoking pot or drinking alcohol. I myself do not do drugs. I don't drink and I don't smoke. So I have to just kind of rely on natural things to get me to go to sleep. Magnesium is a wonderful supplement to take before bed. It's a calming supplement. It will help you just kind of dial down. I take about 1,000 milligrams of magnesium about an hour before I go to bed, and it really helps me out. Although sometimes my sleep is disrupted, but I am very regimented on my sleep. And the reason behind that is because when we sleep, we're not only fasting, but we are also, repairing every system in our body. Everything, it's like a computer. You turn it off, you turn it on, you reset it. That's what we're doing when we're sleeping. Having a sleep schedule is imperative. And I have another book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. He is out of UC Berkeley. He's a sleep scientist. And again, his name is Matthew Walker. He is incredible. The information that he has on sleep, I had no idea. And I've researched him. Starting last summer, I researched Matthew Walker, and it's pretty impressive what he has to say. He is English, so he has a little bit of a accent, but he's a joy. So that's about intermittent fasting and the different time frames. Again, when you're fasting, what will break your fast is sugar or protein. Watch your protein. Protein will spike your glucose sky high. And a lot of people don't know that. They think, I'm drinking this protein shakes and having the protein bars. Watch out for those. They can just spike it sky high, that glucose. Coffee also, funny enough, it's kind of a hypocritical thing because coffee is supposed to help with ketones, and also if you are, diabetic, it's supposed to be good for diabetics. It's supposed to stave off diabetes type 2. If you're a coffee drinker, it's great news. Everything's wonderful about coffee. But what's not good about coffee is that caffeine actually boosts our glucose. If you're familiar with a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, they are pretty insane, the information, because the monitor you put on you, and it tells you, instead of pricking your finger and checking your blood sugar and say it says 101 or whatever, 99, it tells you when you're eating something, your CGM will tell you where your blood is going. Like, this bowl of oatmeal is making you, you know, super high on the glycemic index. You better slow down. So it's really useful. They are a little expensive. I'm not sure if some insurance companies cover it or not, but excuse me, something to think about. Continuous glucose monitor, and to watch your protein, watch your coffee, caffeine in general, the caffeine, you know, the Rockstar drinks and the whatever energy drinks that are out there. I wouldn't touch those with a 10-foot pole. Same thing as soda, high fructose corn syrup, not going in my body. So as you can see, there's a lot to the intermittent fasting, but remember, protein and sugar will break your fast. So, you know, if you have anything with protein or sugar. Now, stevia seems to be a sweetener that you can use that has not been shown to elevate blood sugar levels. Anything with nutrition is going to be confusing and conflicting. And, you know, a study 3 years ago on stevia said it didn't raise blood sugar. And then, you know, I've seen some studies recently saying that it does. The best thing that you can do is put it in your coffee, whatever drink, iced tea, and take your blood sugar. I am not a diabetic, but I have a blood sugar monitor. So just because I want to know what my health is doing, I want to know, you know, I don't want to be diabetic type 2, so I just keep a close eye on it. So that's pretty much what, there's a bunch more information I could give you. There's a plethora of information I could give you on intermittent fasting, but I'm going to stop there. If you're interested in the intermittent fasting, just know that protein and sugar will break it. You can do a 12-hour fast that's just as beneficial as a 16 or 18-hour. It's pretty simple. You just skip breakfast. There's no, the whole myth of, you know, your metabolism dropping because you don't, no, it's not true. So, and I mean, I use myself as a guinea pig. I can wear a pair of pants that I wore 15 years ago. And, you know, I'm going to be 50 in June. So I'm here to tell you that it doesn't slow your metabolism down. If anything, it helps you in longevity. And they're proving that. Dr. Peter Attia, he is one that I absolutely adore. He is a medical doctor, but he is rewriting medical history, and he's not a pill pusher. So he has a new book out called Outlive. Do you believe I have that right here? Yep. Dr. Attia, Peter Attia, Outlive. The man is a genius as far as I'm concerned. His information is dead on accurate. I mean, if anyone dares to, you know, kind of look up his information, he is also a really good podcast for Dr. Attia is the Rich Roll podcast. And he is on this, and I think it's a long one. Podcasts are like an hour and a half long sometimes, but it's worth the watch. And also, Arthur C. Brooks is on Rich Roll as well, and you can kind of get to know him a little bit more as far as his happiness study, which is to me just always phenomenal just to know about it. So, I hope that you've enjoyed this class. I wasn't sure how long it was going to be. I just wanted to get a couple things out there for people, and I hope that you have enjoyed it. I'm enjoying teaching and sharing what I know, and I have clients right now that are doing very well, and I learn things from them as well. And just sharing your knowledge is something that I feel is very important. When you know something and you feel it will help others in some way, share it. Share the information. Share the love. We're all just trying to get along every day, and why not, kind of make your day a little bit brighter and have a little bit more knowledge about happiness and how to, be in a happy state of mind. Your mindset is something that you and you alone control, not everybody else. You control your behavior. You are your problem, and you are your solution. A lot of times we get in our own way with certain things. Declutter your mind, get focused, take action. When we engage in action, a lot of really good positive things happen for us. So I do hope that you've enjoyed this class. Thank you for being here. I appreciate every single one of you. And I even had somebody text me saying they wouldn't make it tonight, and I really appreciate that. This video will be on later, so if you haven't caught it live, you can catch it later. So have a wonderful Friday, have a great weekend, and thank you again for being here. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Take care.